Chainsaw Man is kicking off its civil war. We have two groups, Fami, Chainsaw Man Church, doing what they have to do to stop this apocalypse from happening. Then we have Public Safety, who is also trying to stop this apocalypse, but also stop Denji from being a part of this apocalypse. So where are we? Where do we sit? Who do we actually root for? We know that Nostradamus' prophecy is going to be here. How do we deal with that prophecy? Obviously, these two groups have their own versions of that. But I think what both groups fail to realize is giving Denji his agency, his choice. What does he want to do? You might think that sounds a little bit weird coming from either faction, but it is very important.
He is exceptional.
Denji's currently in a very interesting position, torn between two different factions, trying to accomplish two different things from their own perspective. On one hand, you have Chainsaw Man Church that is trying to make Chainsaw Man a reality, trying to make him go wild like he used to. Public Safety doesn't want this to be a thing. They want to keep him out of the picture, out of the fray entirely. For what reason, we don't entirely know, but one can fathom that the consequences of erasing particular things is a lot more drastic and a lot more severe. When it comes to Nostradamus' prophecy, the final horseman that is death, the age of devils, clearly this is a defining moment between all of these people, these groups, and specifically Denji and Nayuta. And the one way that they're trying to elevate Denji, to bring him back into the fold forcefully, is by killing Nayuta, ripping her away from him because they recognize that their connection is very strong. I talked about this a while back, that this was going to be the biggest issue, the biggest problem that Denji would have, that a lot of people that want to activate Chainsaw Man will have to go through Nayuta. Now, she's not weak by any means, but the level of responsibility that Denji has towards her, the connection, the family that he's built, he's going to fight for that if someone steps in front of it. For this, it does answer our question. Fami knows what to do. She's playing the game perfectly. She wants Chainsaw Man, she knows exactly how to get it. The fact that this is kickstarted by Barum, I find rather cute. He's a quirky individual and he's playing his role really well, gathering all of the attention, getting all the pseudo Chainsaw Men surrounding him and sicking them onto Nayuta like dogs. I see some big battles brewing here. Barum will most likely be someone within the future that's going to be difficult to deal with because he's rather intelligent. Leave a like and subscribe. And then the previous time that we saw him under Makima's control, he seemed like he retained a lot of his identity. He wasn't someone that was blindly being controlled by Makima, at least with the little that we've seen. With that implication, he's playing this intelligently and backs Denji into a pretty drastic corner. And the person that comes to the rescue, being Quan Chi, is as brilliant as ever. Powerful, strong, fast, you name it. She's cutting through every single pseudo Chainsaw Man, grabbing all three of them and running away. They're trying to put distance between the Chainsaw Man Church, Barum, Fami, etc. and back to Public Safety. This goes relatively pretty smoothly, straightforward. When you're dealing with the first Devil Hunter, you're dealing with someone like Quan Chi, who seems oddly quiet, oddly manipulated, even though it's kind of par for her character. It seems a lot more controlled, and I wonder if, just hypothetically, that this has gone through Public Safety's layer of control further and further, because they have hybrids now. They have weaponry that they can use, and even though Quan Chi was a part of it before, I think a lot of her identity, or at least a lot of the characteristics that she used to portray, are a lot dimmer now. She kind of just seems like an agent out on the field doing what she's told to do without any sort of care for anything else, which on one hand works really well for Public Safety, and on the other completely backseats her identity out of the story. I think there may be a little bit more of an incentive to control her fully in case she does go out of control or decide to do her own thing. Because when you look at someone like Katana Man, for example, who still retains a lot of his identity, a lot of that charm and characteristic, they're like almost night and day. It's a little bit difficult to tell with Quan Chi because she kind of naturally acts like this. She's rather stone-faced, doesn't really show any emotion whatsoever, so I am curious, but it could just be nothing. If anything, this was her chapter. She pulled through, saved Denji, managed to escape, put a bit of distance, and even kind of has this threatening pose or aura against Barum. So I wonder if those two might actually fight. Not Denji, not Nayuta, or anybody else, but hybrid against hybrid, which logically, power scaling wise, would probably make a little bit more sense. Denji, within his Pochita full armor form, is ridiculously powerful, has some of the most craziest feats that you can imagine, but when you start to bring in the other hybrids, Katana Man, Quan Chi, Barum, Sword Guy even, there's a little bit more room for flexibility and balancing them out in a pretty equal match. I think maybe that's what Fujimoto is currently trying to do, evening out the playing field as much as possible without one side feeling too overwhelmingly strong. Yeah, they have all these pseudo chainsaw men, but Quan Chi just devoured through a good chunk of them with ease. Simple as that. She may be one of the strongest, but a lot of other devil hunters can prove competent as well. I mean, you just see the amount of death and destruction that's currently being caused, and they're keeping up somewhat. We also find out a pretty interesting fact that they have to burn the bodies of these pseudo chainsaw men. A little bit of blood can get them back up and running, which is identical to Denji. Burning them is pretty crazy, however. For something that you don't want to garner a lot of public attention, unfortunately this is one of those things that you kind of just have to do and pay the price for it. This is a mass devil outbreak. This is their purpose. They want the public to be involved. They want to bring a new level of fear towards Denji, and he's going to grow rapidly very powerful. Fire being used, obviously they're contracted with that devil, and then just the atmosphere that is war, which more fear going into that as well. Public safety are in currently at least a pretty somewhat comfortable position to mitigate this threat as much as possible, but it does beg the question, if Emi is trying to garner a lot of attention towards Denji, towards war, to make them stronger, there's no real end goal in sight. Does that make sense? There's no real expectation that all of these people need to meet or some event that's going to be caused by it. Naturally, they're just going to become stronger and stronger anyway, because that fear becoming more heightened and more publicly available. You see it at the end, funny enough, with some random guy saying that Denji is also a Chainsaw Man wannabe. This would be the beginning of the end. So there's not really anything that can be done. Public safety can only quell and slow down / stop what these pseudo Chainsaw Mans are doing to the public, but it's already there. Does that make sense? This ends off the chapter, simple, straightforward, to the point. We're building a pretty interesting dynamic between all the organizations that are currently going on, between Nostradamus' prophecy and between the agency of Denji protecting Nayuta. We don't really know what he's going to do, how he's going to act, how he's going to turn around and face the situation. We haven't even seen him kind of address it at all, whether it be internally or externally. How does he go about that? Public safety, I would say, currently has the upper hand in sense of the power hitters that they have. Asa and War aren't currently free roaming around the city. They are underneath Yoshida's protection, thus public safety. I don't think she's dead, and I don't think it's that easy to get rid of someone like War. I would say the process of keeping her locked up and potentially utilizing her as a weapon, similar to the other hybrids that they have underneath public safety's control, would be a lot more intelligent of a thing to do. We don't really know who's calling the shots. There doesn't really have to be anyone for public safety's side, but it would be nice to see, I guess, the perception of different members within public safety, especially Yoshida, someone that has been moving very interestingly throughout this story's narrative. His communication with Asa, his communication with Denji, and trying to allow him to do certain things, but also backseat him from other things, and honestly just trying to put things in motion before it got to this point specifically. It's almost like Yoshida knew a lot more information than he let on, which makes a lot of sense, but it also seems like he went out of his way to at least try and get Denji out of the picture early on, before things got too desperate. Thus, I would hope, or at least like to see, a little bit more towards that. I find it very interesting. Public safety's best interest now is to protect Nayuta at all costs. Keep her away from danger, as in return, you kind of keep Denji under a leash as well. I enjoyed this chapter, as simple as it was, very entertaining, slowly moving things forward, and in a way that is becoming a lot more complex. Realistically, think about it for a moment. Whose side are you meant to be on? Who are you meant to support? This prophecy is coming. It's not like it isn't. We don't know how public safety want to handle it. We know how Fami wants to handle it, which is pretty destructive, as we already can see, but she wants to stop it. Now that isn't necessarily a bad thing. However, does she want to erase death from existence? Now that can be problematic, and maybe that is what public safety is trying to stop, as Denji is the only one that can do it. But Fami seems very confident, oddly enough so, to go through all of this, plan it all, manipulate it all, have it all run successfully in motion to make Denji and War more powerful. She's scared of death, clearly has some sort of understanding on how strong this being can be, not just based on the idea of death itself, but potentially from personal experience. There is an opportunity here that death is not just a horseman, not like Control control, not like famine, not like war, but also something that is a primal fear. Could double back as both. And if that is the case, I understand why Fami is doing everything to make these two stronger. And just to throw in a hypothetical curveball, if death is both a horseman and a primal fear, I wonder if you could erase one part of it. There is no evidence, no footing, no groundwork for this to be a possibility, but if Pochita or Denji could erase the horseman side and not the primal fear, theoretically you could stop Nostradamus' prophecy, and the concept that is the primal fear stays within hell and is able to exist within the human world as well. So death doesn't just magically disappear in the human world and everything goes to shambles that way. Do you see what I mean? Clearly there is an end goal here that isn't all too comfortable with everyone, and that's the overlap. This group wants to do this group wants to do that, Denji's kind of stuck within the middle, but no one has a clear, defined, morally, ethically good answer to what is coming, and that is the problem.